Tesla's earnings call was a train wreck, says Dan Ives. I saw this yesterday, and I was like, I got to react to this one because we might have a difference of opinion in regards to that. All right, guys, next one up here. Dan Ives saying it's a train wreck of a conference call?
In the room and give a strategic and financial overview. Instead, we got a high-level Tesla long-term view with another train wreck of a conference call. Dan Ives not holding back. He joins us around the table. Dan, good morning to you.
No, great to be here.
You sound disappointed.
Look, I mean, this was an important call where Musk and the rest of the team needed to step up, adults in the room, give some guidance in terms of what's happening on pricing, the margin pressure, strategically. And I'd say train wreck would probably be soft because this was one where the long-term story is intact, but in the near term, they needed to navigate, communicate. They didn't do that. You'll see a lot of pressure on the stock.
Dreadful assessment. Stock is lower by something like 7% in the pre-market. Have you changed your call on the name?
Look, I mean, we're still bullish, but no, from a fair
Before we go further, my opinion was that conference call was not a train wreck. That was actually a step in the right direction. The last couple conference calls, specifically the last one, if I recall, that was a train wreck. That was one of the worst conference calls I ever listened to. This conference call was definitely a step in the right direction. Was it the greatest conference call I ever heard? No. But there's still some, things that are left a little confusing, like margins in kind of where we're going there. Sure. But I would not call it a train wreck. I've heard plenty of Tesla calls that were train wrecks in the past. This wasn't one.
Perspective. I mean, 350 goes toward probably lower threes, 3 to 315 from a base perspective because numbers are going to come down. And the biggest issue here is that you didn't give goalposts. Because by not giving goalposts now, the Bears are going to run with it. And look, the Bears won last night. The long-term story is intact in terms of FSD, in terms of if you're a believer in EV, which we are, $1 trillion market cap, I do believe is on the horizon the next few years. But in the near term, I mean, this is one where it's a glass half empty relative to how they talked about it. I mean, this was sort of a 101, how to do a conference call.
I want to understand what the threshold is for you to say sell. Because we have Elon Musk, who just said, as you said, a train wreck of a conference call was not the adult in the room. He wants 25% of Tesla, or else he's going to walk and go develop some sort of robotics company. If he gets 25% of Tesla's shares, do you say sell?
Look, I think, first of all, I view that as sort of impossible here. There's not going to be a dual class situation from a share perspective. Plus, he did sell. He had 22% ownership before buying Twitter. So part of that in terms of there.
I'm up so early in the morning this morning, I just saw a school bus go by. I'd never seen a school bus in my neighborhood in my life. I just saw a school bus in the neighborhood. How'd they even get through the guard gates? What? That was ridiculous.
Board will have some sort of comp package. Right now, it's caught in a legal issue in terms of Delaware. But I think if he gets more voting control, that's something that's going to ruffle feathers. But also the problem here is that the plane's crashing in the near term. And you're talking about salted or unsalted pretzels. And that's the biggest problem relative to what's happening in Tesla is that investors want to have some guidance. Give me some financial parameters, and you didn't get it. And look, and obviously we're huge firm believers, and that's the frustration.
Well, okay, as a firm believer then, what does it do to you that Elon Musk came out and basically said, I don't care if this company makes money. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I'm not looking for additional economics, read more money. I just want to be an effective steward of very powerful technology. Does that bother you?
Look, I think in some ways...
She totally misread that. Perfect example of somebody just reading a transcript and not understanding like what was actually said on the conference call. Listen, Elon Musk, the way she framed that is not the way Elon Musk meant that at all. He was talking about he's not trying to get additional shares for the company. He just wants more voting power. So it's not like he's trying to, I want to, get another $30 billion worth of shares or $50 billion or $100 billion or something like that. That's not at all what he's trying to do. That's why he's saying not on the economic front. He's just simply looking for more voting power in regards to the shares. Okay, so, oh my gosh. I mean, the way she makes that sound, it makes it sound like Elon Musk doesn't care about profits or economics. Like, what? No.
Autonomous is going to be super powerful. And I think even what we saw with OpenAI and Altman, I mean, there's definitely a lot of unintended consequences here. I do believe in Dojo, Optimus. I could argue the value going forward from AI is much more than the EV and the actual value today of Tesla. But for Musk right now to kind of exert that, it's agita, it's Harper. It's the last thing as a bull you want to hear, and it does sort of put gasoline on the fire a little, and that's not what you wanted to hear last night. And it goes back to you needed an adult in the room last night, and instead it felt more preschool type conference call.
Isn't this the cost, though, of doing business and investing in a company with someone like Elon Musk at the helm?
Yes and no. I mean, for investors like we've seen it for a decade, right? And you understand you take the good with the bad. But now at this point, this was a huge period to sort of walk investors through, give some goalposts. Zach, CFO with him gone, definitely feels a different type of conference call that we're seeing. And as long-term believers in the story, we remain that in terms on the other side. But in the near term, the bears won, and it's hard to defend. And that's why you're going to see pressure on the stock today, with 2024 being a trough year in terms of margins.
As a long-term believer of Tesla, Elon Musk also said last night that China will pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world. How are you looking at the space overall? He's basically setting Tesla up to be taken over.
Well, I think it's really Tesla and the Chinese EV players, because the price war that's happening, it's a Game of Thrones price war that's happening in Beijing. You're seeing it. I think that was the right strategic move in 2023. 2024, you can't continue to go down that path. At one point, you got to hold serve. And as much as we talk about FSD and everything else, for now, it's about, do you continue to cut prices? We thought 95% were done. We were dead wrong going into that conference call. That was a wrong call. Now it's defending, as a bull in terms of the long-term story.
Listen, I've been listening to Tesla conference calls for probably about 6 years now. 6 years. Tesla conference calls have never been impressive. Ever. 6 years I've been doing this. Their conference calls are usually some of the worst of companies I listen to in terms of getting, good information out of them. It's not that sort of company. It is not the sort of company you're like, wow, this is such a professional, well-run corporate conference call. No, not Tesla. Not Tesla. I could show you many of those companies, but it's not Tesla. So, I don't know, man. Sometimes I think, do people just listen to their first conference call ever? You got to know the vibes before you get in the conference call. Alrighty, guys. So, Tesla, my Tesla. Let's get into this, baby. Alrighty. So, I go to the front page of Inside EVs here today, and look what I'm greeted with. I'm greeted with this on the very front page here. Lucid CEO, $50,000 Model 3, Model Y competitor coming sooner than you think. Okay, folks, let's put it this way. When I open up Inside EVs, and that's the very first thing I'm greeted with, I know we're at pretty much peak fear in regards to good old Tesla, my Tesla. When we've gone this far, then now our fear is around Lucid. Oh my gosh, Lucid's going to come after us, and Lucid's going to destroy Tesla now. Here's the deal, okay? Lucid's a gulag stock. If you don't know a gulag stock is a stock that is under $5 a share, okay? So this would be the equivalent of I own a gulag stock, and then I own a phenomenal stock. One's name's Honest. Honest is a gulag stock. Elf on a Shelf is maybe my most successful investment ever in history in terms of return on investment. I think I'm up 2,000+% on those shares, right? So this is the equivalent of me saying Honest is coming for Elf. Elf better watch out. Come on, man. Okay, Lucid's a flippin' flapjack and gulag stock. This company, in their latest results that they were proud of, they delivered 1,734 vehicles. I did the math on how many Teslas Tesla delivered per day last quarter, and it was somewhere around roughly 5,300. Around 5,300 deliveries per day Tesla did, per day. And this company's doing 1,700 per quarter. I mean, just what are we talking about here, okay? And this is the same Lucid that loss from operations last quarter was $752 million. That's in a quarter, okay? If we go for the 9 months so far for 2023, they had, look at this, loss from operations, $2.3 billion. I've been part of some money-losing companies over the past 15 years. I've never been part of one that was that extreme. Oh my gosh, okay? So here's the deal, folks, okay? We're in a certain kind of period in regards to Tesla where Fear is overwhelming. The reality of that fear is not nearly as scary, but it's one of those time periods, and I've seen Tesla go through many of these time periods. Even before I was an investor of the stock, which I've been an investor of the stock for roughly 5-6 years now, even before I was in the stock, it went through these, crazy, fearful time periods when it's just everything was thrown at it, and we're going through one of those right now. And what we're going to find is these fears are going to be torn down one by one, and we're going to realize, oh man, a lot of these fears were just really not as big as we blew them up to be in our heads. And that's the moral of that story. I want to stick to just the facts for a moment. I don't want to have my opinion in here. I want to stick to just the facts, okay? Just the facts. Here's the deal, okay? Tesla just came off of a year where they delivered 1.8 million plus vehicles, okay? Look where this company was just back in 2015. 2015, they were delivering 50,000 vehicles. So they scaled from 50,000 to 1.81 million. One of the only automakers in history to not go bankrupt. It's unbelievable what this company's pulled off, right? If that doesn't convince you enough, look at the revenue. And look what's happened to the revenue. In 2015, this company did $4 billion of revenue. This past year, 2023, they did $96.7 billion, billion dollars of revenue. That's a 24x. They 24x'd revenue from just 2015 to 2023. Who else is doing that? I don't even know if NVIDIA's quite got that growth. I mean, NVIDIA has been an insane scaler over the past 8 years or so. I don't even know if they've done it that insane. That's ridiculous. 24x. Look at the bottom line, net income. Used to be talked about as Tesla's never going to be profitable. They're never going to be able to make money from these cars. Look at this, okay? This is on a GAAP basis. In 2015, the company lost $889 million. They just had a profit on a GAAP basis, net income, of nearly $15 billion. Check this out. I mean, in 2017, the company had a net loss of nearly $2 billion to then nearly $15 billion. And remember, this was in a year where they lowered price 1,000 times. Are you kidding me? To put up those sorts of numbers when you were lowering price. The last thing on Tesla's mind in 2023 was profits. The last thing. Elon only cared about units. That's it. He didn't care about profitability. And yet they still put up a record GAAP year in terms of net income. That's insane. Look at this. This is their cash on hand. 2015, this company had $1.2 billion roughly in cash on hand. Now, $29 billion in cash equivalents, and investments. It's insane. Insane. I mean, these numbers are pretty shocking. To try to bet against this company that has done this, I think is a very hard case to make. But we're not even close to being done here, okay? Look at this. This is very overlooked sides of Tesla's business. Everybody's focused on, how many cars did they sell? Model 3s, Model Ys, things like that, okay? They've got these other businesses that are growing into giants right in front of our eyes, but no one's paying attention to them. Check this out. Tesla last year, in 2023, did over $6 billion. And keep in mind, this is a $6 billion run rate business now that's growing over 50% a year, okay? Energy generation and storage revenue. That is incredible. Check out this line item right here. Services and other revenue. This is a business that just grew 37% last year in a bad year for Tesla. And they did over $8.3 billion in revenue. So these two businesses together should be well over $20 billion of revenue next year. Well over. It's just a question of how far over. Are we going with the $20 billion based upon kind of these growth rates here? And keep in mind, these businesses were, significantly smaller just a few years ago. Look at 2019, right? Prior to Rona, prior to all the craziness, $1.5 billion in energy generation and storage revenue versus over $6 billion now. $2.2 billion in services and other revenue versus over $8 billion now at this point in time. That is incredible. And the numbers are just going to keep pouring in for those two businesses that are just epically massive and are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? Tesla is factually way more than just an auto company. And tell me how many other companies have several other lines of business over $5 billion of run rate in revenue. Seriously, how many other companies in the world have two other business lines that are over a $5 billion run rate? How many? Not many. I can think of maybe 2 or 3 other businesses in the world. I mean, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And that's not even the best thing, okay? Here's the deal, okay? Energy storage deployments. I mean, the chart's self-explanatory there. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that. This is where it gets into, some people feel like Tesla's a utility company. A lot of people just want to group them into automaker, and you look at something like this, you look at the revenue they're starting to bring in, and you're like, wait a minute, is this actually an automaker plus a utility company? But then you look at services and other gross profit, and that reached up to nearly $500 million this past year, and that just is scaling rapidly. I mean, literally, they took this from 2020 was a $300 million plus gross loss to now around a $500 million gross profit. And now you're starting to wonder, wait a minute, is this like an Apple? Are we talking about this is like an Apple situation where their services revenue is just going to continue to grow massively, and next thing you know, it's going to be a $20 billion, $30 billion, $40 billion, $50 billion a year business with epic profitability for that business line? Oh, it looks like we're headed there, considering we just scaled from $2.2 billion in 2019 to $8.3 billion. And we don't even have FSD done yet. Imagine when that comes. Oh, we'll speak about FSD in just a moment, okay? Here's another fact for you. Model Y, best-selling vehicle globally in 2023. Incredible. Incredible. There can only be one number one. Model 3, another fact for you. This baby just got updated. Finally, after years and years and years of basically the same Model 3, finally got updated. So, I wonder if there's going to be a little excitement in terms of sales over the next several years, being that they got an updated Model 3. I don't know. Maybe just my opinion. I think there's a pretty high probability of that, right? Here, I thought this matters so significantly, and I brought this out as a point for the video the other day, a couple days ago. I pointed this out. They produced nearly 560,000 vehicles in 2023 from the Fremont factory. Tesla's a company that's always doing the impossible. People thought this would never happen. 250, they said 250 a year max out of Fremont, right? Then it was 400 a year max out of Fremont. Then, they can't do over 500,000 out of Fremont. Now they're doing nearly 560,000 vehicles in 2023 out of the Fremont factory. Tesla's just a great example of a very rare company that every time you say they can't do that, they do it. They accomplish it. They could never, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the amount of times I've heard this over the years in regards to Tesla, they can't do it. They do it. There's almost every other company in the world, you could say they can't do it, and you're right, they can't do it. Tesla's a freak company that when you say they can't do it, they're like, oh, watch us. Just watch us. We'll do it, okay? It's the superstar athlete. It's the LeBron James. It's the Michael Jordan. It's the Tom Brady. It's the whoever you want to put it up to, okay? It's the Usain Bolt of companies that they do the impossible. And you're just like, I can't. You just sit back and you're just like, I can't believe they pulled that off. Even the biggest bears in regards to Tesla stock, they're constantly saying that. They're like, dang, man, as bad as they want to hate all the time, even sometimes they have to give Tesla credit. Like, I can't believe they actually did blah, blah, blah. I can't believe they did that. I can't believe Elon pulled it off. I mean, at some point in time, you just got to tip your hat and say, dang, man, they do the impossible. We've got the Cybertruck ramping this year. This isn't like, it's going to ramp 10 years from now, 5 years from now. It's ramping this year. This is the big ramp year, okay? And this is so exciting because tell me another more talked about hyped vehicle in the history of mankind. I'll wait. There is none. There is none. The Cybertruck's by far and away the most hyped, talked about truck in the history of vehicles, period. It's the most famous truck on the planet, and no one even has it yet. I mean, that's just ridiculous. The most famous talked about truck, and people don't even have this truck yet? It's ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. So, literally, they're going to be able to sell as many Cybertrucks as they possibly want to sell for years and years and years to go. And keep in mind, these trucks will be huge money makers. Maybe not at first, the first few quarters of that ramp, while they're trying to figure everything out here, maybe not money makers. Tesla might even lose money on the first, quarter or two of trucks. But I can tell you long term, huge money. I would bet you likely the profit margins on Cybertruck will be far greater than any of their other vehicles. That's my hunch. Usually trucks are phenomenal for profit, just as Ford that, okay? So, just wait on that, baby, okay? Just wait on that. Then we have Tesla Wraps, which is a business I said they should get in a while ago, and sure enough, now they just entered this business here recently. This is a genius new opportunity. These wraps, it looks like they're selling them for anywhere between $6,000 and $8,000, so they're definitely priced heavier than if you get it done at a wrap place, because most wrap places will wrap it for like, oh gosh, probably about $4,000 to $5,000 you're looking at. So Tesla's going to be $1,000 to maybe $3,000 above those wrap places, but a lot of people would just trust Tesla more to do it, and it's just kind of like the ease of having it done right there and not having to take it into a wrap place, and it takes them several days to get the job done, and you're out of a vehicle. And so a lot of people are just, and plus some people are going to want to wrap it into their loan, no pun intended. They're just going to want to wrap it into their loan versus having to pay out of pocket many times for like a local place to wrap it. So this is going to be a huge profit opportunity. I can tell you those wrap places make some money here in Vegas, and Tesla's going to be selling it for a higher price, and I bet you Tesla's going to be way more efficient when they go to wrap these models too. So I'm telling you, that's going to be big money making business there. Profits. You want to talk about profits? You want to talk about the service category? This is huge. And guess what? So many people want to wrap their Teslas. I mean, it's insane how many people wrap their Teslas, okay? Let's talk about full self-driving. So new full self-driving's out. And from what I've seen, it is very impressive. I mean, extremely impressive. And if you haven't got to see some of the new videos they have out in regards to the new full self-driving beta, you might want to check that out. And just the commentary around that is pretty phenomenal, okay? Dramatically better than any experience I've had with FSD 11. I mean, amazing to see how far FSD has come. Can't wait to get my update. So FSD, a lot of the bears are just kind of giving up on this and things like that in terms of like, even a lot of the bulls, I think, have kind of given up on FSD. And I'm just like, here we are at a moment where I'm like, this is actually insanely close now. Like 5 years ago when it was talked about, and 3 years ago, no, we weren't even remotely close. Now we're actually at a place when you see the new full self-driving, you're like, dude, this is insanely impressive. We're at the finish line now. And so that's something here, man. So this is all like just huge things going for Tesla, right? It's just thing after thing after thing after thing. We can get caught up into interest rates. We can get caught up into, consumer sentiment being bad right now and those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, in Chinese competition and all the things the bears talk about, but at the end of the day, what it just ran you through there, that's a hard company to bet against, right? Whose team do you want to be on? Do you want to be on this company's team or not on the team? If this was an athlete and this could be your teammate for the team, would you want to be on their team or would you not? Knowing the track record this company has over the past several years. I mean, this is like the Usain Bolt of flipping flapjacking companies. And it's like, you don't want to be on part of that team? Okay, you're going to lose a relay race, but you can do whatever you want to do, right? Now, the talk is always like, Tesla's too expensive. I'm going to buy Tesla when it crashes, when the company's in bad times. That's when I'm going to buy it. Folks, guess what? The company has crashed. The company is in bad times. 2023, 2024 are the bad times for Tesla. And I know the numbers still look like great times for almost any other company, but this is bad times for Tesla. This is bad times. When they're about to ramp a new vehicle, the Model Y and Model 3 are just getting refreshed here. Like, this is their bad time period. They had to cut price. This was the bad times. So, I mean, the stock peaked out at 400. It's been anywhere between 100 and 200 from most of the past year or so. This is the bad times. So if you're not willing to buy Tesla now, when are you going to buy Tesla? When it crashes, when it's in great times? That's not going to happen. The stock's not going to crash in great times. It's going to be at probably new all-time highs when it's great times. So you need to buy when it's crashing and when they're in bad times, which has been where the stock's been for the last year plus, right? So, you got to kind of think about these things a little bit, right? And then you say, well, I want it for cheap. It's too expensive. I want it for like a 20 or 30 forward P or something like that. And to that I say, good luck. I would love to buy Amazon shares at a 20 or 30 forward P, but it's just not very realistic, okay? Most of the time I've ever seen Amazon, it trades between a 40 and 150 forward P. Why does it trade like that? Well, because it's a very special company that has massive amounts of growth levers all over the company, that has so many years of growth ahead of it, it's hard to even fathom. Guess what Tesla is? The same exact thing. There's growth levers all over Tesla. that it's like, oh my gosh, they have this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity, that over the next 5-10 years, you can see how the next thing you know, they can get to several $100 billion of revenue. You can see how this company can get to $500 billion of revenue. You can even see a possibility of how this company can get to $1 trillion of revenue down the road. You can see how this company can get to $50 billion in net income, to $100 billion in net income. Like, you can see the path on how they get there. You can run the numbers and do the projections, right? And so to get it at a forward P of 20 or 30, it'd be beautiful, but it's just not super realistic. It's like me saying, okay, there's the brand new Lamborghini. The Lamborghini dealership gets the brand new Lamborghini there, and I'm like, man, that Lamborghini looks awesome. It's a $300,000 Lamborghini. Maybe they'll sell it to me for $150,000. Okay, you think they're going to do that? Like maybe it could be my lucky day and I could buy that Lamborghini for $150,000 instead of $300,000, but it probably ain't happening. And so the same exact thing could be said for Tesla. Like, the whole hope of like, oh, maybe I can get a lot cheaper value. It's so unrealistic. Is it possible? Sure. Is it a very high probability? No. You've got to pay up for great companies. And there's no debating that Tesla's a top tier, one of the best companies in the world when you look at just what I ran you through there with the financials.